أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذي يذهب الله عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وفوض أمري إلى الله بصير بالعباد إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to another session in our journey in Surah Fatiha. I'm so pleased to see faces today. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much for turning on your cameras. You won't be coming on the recording, but I'm really, really happy to see you guys. It really makes such a difference. So last week we were discussing An'amta alayhim. We were discussing about this gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for those who are seeking it. We are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this prayer in Surah Fatiha that, oh Allah, make us amongst those who are blessed, who are in grace. And today, I wanted to go through the word An'amta alayhim, so I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So we have these words on our screen today, where we can see that the word ni'mah is being shown. So there's a difference here that the writer has given about na'ma and ni'mah, and I usually just go for the gist of the root word, which is what is a good state. So ni'mah can be used for all kinds of good state, whether few or large in number. And then it says that in some places in the Quran where this word is used, is you can see at the bottom of the page, and if you should count the ni'mah of Allah, you could not enumerate it, 16, 18. Then the next one is remember my ni'mah that I made you get, in surah number 2, Baqarah 40. Then it says, and I completed my ni'mah upon you. We read this ayat a lot, but mamtu alaykum ni'mati, surah number 5, ayat number 3. And then it says, so they returned with a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, surah number 3, 174. Then we go to the next slide, where we're looking at the words an'am, an'amta alayhim. You can see at the bottom it says surah number 1, ayah number 7. And this is when it is used as the word is used with the Allah, the preposition, and it means to make something good happen for someone, to do a favor for them. And you only use it for if you're making it happen for an intelligent talking being like humans, jinns, or angels. So this means that over here, there's a difference in the ni'mah that is being asked for. So this is where I actually just want to bring your attention, and we will continue with our session, that there's a difference over here where the gift that we are asking Allah is a gift that is very specific to the living beings. And it's something which is something to do with the consciousness, a conscious being who is intelligent. Now, what is really beautiful here is the choice of Allah's word of using this an'amta alayhim, that now we're asking for a gift which is not just on a physical level, a blessing which we said could not be a simple gold bracelet or pearl or anything like that. It is something which a higher faculty can appreciate, an intelligent being can appreciate, And that is something that we are asking Allah for. So when we look at the faculties within a human being, we see that we're intellectual, we have a consciousness, we have an awareness which other beings don't have. And so we're talking about being different from an animal. And so our gift that we're asking for is not something that would appeal or make any difference to an animal, but it is only something that a human being, or like the translation was saying, a jinn or an angel would be able to appreciate. And we see that there's a sense of differentiating this gift when we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we said that, I say this a lot of times, that Surah Fatiha is an ascension. It's the 7 verses in this surah are almost indicative of the 7 journeys of the soul, or the 7 levels of our ascension, our growth towards our self-actualization, towards our highest potential. And we say that our highest potential is about meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is uniting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through emulating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through becoming like him. And in attaining that perfection, then it seems that we have to go beyond the physical. We cannot be stuck in the physical and say we're going to reach a higher potential. So again, the attention has to keep coming back to the attention is constantly coming back to the idea of going deeper under the surface. I thought somebody was raising their hand. I got a notice, but that's okay. So now if you do, please just indicate to me. I'm just gonna unmute you guys, and then sorry. If there's anything, just please put it on the chat. Okay. So now, what is this higher faculty? What is this ni'mat? What is this gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us to ask him? Now, one of the things that I want to bring to our attention here, which is really important, is that there's this aspect of wanting something becomes effective. What I mean is that this journey which we're taking with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, thank you for the thumbs up. This journey that we're taking with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a journey where we're going to reach a stage where we actually have an appreciation for a gift. And when we have this appreciation for this gift, then we ask for it. So recently I was listening to a talk, and the scholar was saying that the key in getting what we want, the key in achieving this status or proximity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the yearning, the wanting. You cannot go and give something to someone when they haven't asked for it. So there's a saying from Imam Ali alayhi salam where he says that, do not give advice to anybody who hasn't asked for it. Don't give it to them, because they will only ask when they are ready to receive. They will only come wanting for something when the yearning is there. And yearning is a sign that now you have prepared yourself to receive something. Now you have become ready to accept something. If a person is not ready and we try to give them something, they're not going to be able to benefit from it. If somebody's eaten food and they're already full, and we want to shove food down their throat, that food is not going to be beneficial, and it's not going to have that desired effect. In fact, there's going to be a negative effect. In the same way, when we want to give our opinion to somebody and we think that we have this brilliant idea or we have this brilliant solution, and we're seeing that this person is in trouble and they can really benefit from it, and we go and we give our opinion and we tell them and we're trying to convince them, but they have not become ready to receive it. Their soil is not ready to receive that seed. So if we are going to give to them something for which they're not ready, then what's going to happen is that even the seed that we will give is going to go to waste. That seed is not going to have any beneficial effect. And so we go on further with this concept of asking and seeking, and we see that the vessel for receiving water, for example, has to be empty to be able to receive that water, like a glass. It has to be empty so you can fill what you want to give to them. Until the emptiness is not felt, that it cannot be filled. All right. So one of the most essential aspects of our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what we were talking about, the fana last time. If we can experience this emptiness, if we can experience that I don't know or I don't have, then we can be the receivers of what we're seeking. If we are already full with a learning or an idea or a habit or a fixed mindset, then we're already full. And if we're already full, then we're not in a state of faqr. We're not in a state of neediness. We're not in a state of asking for this. And Allah is saying, Antumul fuqara. Our real state is a state of neediness. But do we feel this neediness? Do we feel this desire for something because we're feeling empty? And the state of fana is then the state of annihilation, of completely letting go of me. I let go of me so that the divine can fill that emptiness when I have created the space. So a cup has to be completely washed out, cleaned, and emptied, and then it is ready to be filled. And so there's this huge wisdom in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala formulating Surah Fatiha in the form of a dua. Because if Allah had said, I'm giving you my nemat, and we'd be like, I don't want this nemat of whatever intelligence or faculty, whatever Allah wants to give. I don't feel the need for it. I don't want it. I don't feel like there's something missing that needs to be filled. But in doing so, in making into a dua, Allah has put us into a reminder that every single time you're saying, and Allah make me one of those who have been blessed, is that your need for this blessing will be an infinite need. Your emptiness will be an infinite thirst that will always need to be quenched. Can you recognize this emptiness? Can you recognize this place where the mystics say, the more I knew, the more I realized how much I did not know. And so a state of moving higher towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will then be a bigger and bigger state of nothingness, a greater and greater state of feeling completely lost and completely empty. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us that gift of feeling completely lost and empty once in a while when we're in this journey, which the Urafa would call, the dark night of the soul, or the state of qabz and contraction. And I'm just going to go into that. And so it becomes this beautiful state of the soul where we enter a conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every state of our life. So for example, then the dark states, the states of contraction where we're feeling completely lost and in darkness, becomes a gift. Because now there's this deep intrinsic experience of feeling completely lost and not knowing anything, and being completely empty, and being completely feeling like, wait a second, I don't know where I've come from, where am I going, what is going on. And it's almost like you have been refreshed, like a website, it gets refreshed and it has to load completely all over again. There's a complete breakdown for a complete reconstruction. When we renovate, it's like if you want a completely new result, you do a complete reconstruction. So we go through these stages in our spiritual journey where we make these complete circles. We start and we feel like we're getting filled, and we're filled, and we're filled, and we're getting this knowledge and an idea and a concept, and we build it, and we think, yeah, I know something, I'm getting a grasp of something, and then again you're at this part of being completely lost and completely not knowing. And so that place of being perplexed and that place of being confused becomes a gift. It becomes a place of knowing that Allah is working on me, that something is being done to me, that Allah is the one, in charge of my journey, and Allah is the one taking me to a place of complete purification. And for that purification to happen, an unlearning is very essential. That whatever we know becomes annihilated, it becomes fana. And so when we say fana fillah, baqa billah, so there's an annihilation within God, and there is a immortality, an infinite life through God. And so the soul goes through this purging of emptying and becoming a clean slate, so that the tablet, which they say there's this tablet on which God will write the next step in your journey. And so this journey is infinite journey. And so the ni'mat here is then itself in the act of seeking. See, we're saying, oh Allah, make me one of those who are blessed. It's so beautiful that the fact, the nature of the sentence, the beggingness of the neediness of the beggar, of saying, make me, I need this from you. It's not in my hands. Can you please do this for me? Can you work on me? And we read that the translation of Anamta alayhim is that something is being done, a good state has to be brought about on us. So this seeking itself is indicative, is of this nature of humility, of humbling ourselves and coming into a state with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala where we come to our knees and we say that I need this. And that neediness will only come when we're feeling that emptiness, when we're feeling completely lost and broken, and we're feeling this this state within ourselves which we don't approve of, which we cannot feel proud of, which we cannot feel like, oh, I know everything, or I know where to go from here, or I've got it sorted. It's not that feeling. It's a feeling of breaking down in utter state of humility and saying, I really, really can't make sense. Can you please give this to me? And I am not the one who can fill myself. It's only you who can do this. So now, today I want to read something from Power of Now. And it's one of my best books that has been with me for so long. One of the most life-changing books of my life, The Power of Now. And so over here, we're going to talk about this gift. And I'm inspired to talk about the impermanence and the cycles of life. So coming to this state in our life where we understand our impermanence. We understand the lack of the permanence of the state that has to keep reloading and refreshing so that there can be growth, constantly coming back to this emptiness. And the emptiness will come when we can let go of the permanence of whatever we are and whatever we have and whatever we know, right? That is where there is an impermanence, which is the true impermanence of the intelligent being. So if I feel that I know something already, I'll give you an example before I go into the book. and I enter a class, or I enter a session, or I enter. Salam, Mohammed. Just excuse me, my son just woke up. Salam, Mohammed. In progress. Okay, so we're going to this idea of impermanence, right? And I wanted to share an experience with you, that when if we enter a class and if we enter a session where we've come to learn something, and we are worried about the impact of what the teacher is going to say on other people, or we're coming here and we're saying, okay, let me analyze what this teacher is saying. Is she right or wrong? Is she or is he even able to add any value to what I already know? Then you've already entered with your cup slightly full, and there's going to be a bias and there's going to be a prejudice, and then the ability to take what that teacher has to offer to us with its purity gets lost. So one of the experiences I had is that one of my students in one of my sessions um, was very uncomfortable with the things I was teaching, and there was a lot of discussion, and we did long discussions, and there was a lot of talk post the lectures. I'm talking about my healing sessions that I do, and eventually what happened is that she felt that what I was teaching was inappropriate. Like these ideas, as I mentioned, are deep ideas. You need to be open, and they're not mainstream. You need to go deeper and under the surface. And she was very new, and she was finding that what I was teaching was very like not tawheed. It was like some sort of shirk. So we were discussing a lot of things, and it reminded me of Imam Ali saying that if Abu Dhar knew the iman and the level of Sulaiman, the Salman Farsi, then Abu Dhar would think that Salman is doing kufr. And so I felt like perhaps we were going through something similar, and she couldn't understand a lot of what I was saying. And so what happened is that after going back and forth, she brought in her teacher with whom she'd been studying. And then we had conversations through her teacher, and her teacher was guiding her. And, she wanted to make sure that what she was learning was pure and pak, and, tawhidi and all of that. And my whole lectures and my whole workshop was on understanding tawheed. So I was giving whatever information I could give. And eventually, when I had explained myself to her and given her my point of view, and I even said that I will do further research with it with my teacher, she said, I'm really disappointed. And I said, what is the disappointment? And she said that the disappointment, like she couldn't put it in words. And then eventually I said, is your disappointment with the fact that you couldn't change my mind, and you couldn't convince me, or you couldn't make me, alter what I'm saying? And she said, guilty is charged. Yeah, that's the disappointment. I couldn't change your point of view. And very subtly I just mentioned to her that I really hope that you received what you had come to gain from here, because I just wanted to remind her to come back to her intention, and remember that she had come here to receive. That was her intention. The intention got lost along the way, and the intention became about giving. She wanted to give me something. She wanted to teach me something. She wanted to change something about me. I had not asked for it. You see, I was not at a receiving end. And of course, as teachers and being on this platform, we have to be always ready to accept our mistakes, be open to learning. I always say, please guide me. I'm open to learning wherever I'm wrong. And if you're interested, you can message me. I can tell you what all the discussions were about. I'm totally open to it and learning. But what I'm trying to explain to you is this state of faqr, is the state of neediness. The state of neediness has to be a state of emptiness. And if we don't have that state of wanting, and this emptiness of saying, wow, this is a new experience in my life. And somehow through such beautiful events in life, I was actually able to connect with her. Like she was a teacher in my kids' school, and she saw me wearing something, and she wanted to know where I bought it from, and that's how she took my number, and that's how we connected. And she got on my Instagram, and then she saw my classes, and then she came to my healing class. So it was such a beautiful chain of events which got her to where she was in the class with me. But then in the class there was this constant need for her to teach me instead of learn. And I felt really like, there was a lot of learning there for me, that we can only receive when we are ready to receive. We only receive when we empty ourselves. And now I'm going to go to the other condition of receiving this ni'mat. And that other condition of receiving this ni'mat is uh, a surrendering, letting go with the flow. And I talk a lot about seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything. And when we are, seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything, then we understand that the flow of life that we are experiencing is not a coincidence. It is not happening by chance. There is a planning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has brought you where you are, that has placed you with the teachers that He's placed you with. And so when we reach this state, then there has to be surrender. We have to become really, really vigilant and really, really, aware that that am I ready? Am I letting go of whatever I've been and whatever my ideas have been, and can I let myself receive this new thing? So Eckhart Tolle in this book, so just wanted to make this point that if you want to receive, then you have to be in a state of asking. And the state of asking is about letting go of everything that you've known, and then focusing on being a receiver, focusing on your intention to receive. I'm digressing again, and I'm not reaching the book, but I have one more experience to share. A couple of years ago, I was sitting in a tafsir class with a teacher, and I had a friend with me, and it had just become this habit, and I'm sharing this very vulnerably because we do that, and I see that all the time. And for me, it was such a life-changing moment. Me and my friend, we would just go to these sessions, and every time we would leave the session, we would discuss how what the teacher was teaching could impact other people in a wrong way. Like, oh, she talked about God like this, but God is not like this. She shouldn't have said this. She should have said this, or she should have said that. And we're constantly discussing how this teacher needs to level up, and she needs to bring in this idea and that idea. And can you imagine? I feel really like ashamed in a way, in a humble way, that Allah humbles us with these reminders, that I'm thinking that I know so much. Like, I'm this teacher already, like, God forbid, who already knows that I'm in a position to actually point a finger at another teacher who's teaching tafsir of Quran, astaghfirullah. And so we're having this discussion after every time. And then one day I'm sitting there, and suddenly I look at her and I'm thinking, what she's saying is really amazing. And it was that moment where I had stopped thinking about what anybody else was listening to, or what anybody else was taking out of her talk, or anybody else was gauging or gaining out of this session. Like, I completely let go of this, this fake sense of responsibility for everybody else. Like, what everybody else will take out of her session is none of my issue. It's none of my business. I was there with the intention to learn, and I would forget that intention every time I would go. But in that moment, there was a reminder and a gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which I can't forget. That moment, that time, that sitting, that teacher, those people, it's like etched in my memory, that in that moment, I saw that this is my teacher, and she has something beautiful to offer to me, and I can really learn from her. I really don't care what anybody else is going to interpret or gauge or gain or anything. And so in that moment, I realized that I had been losing out on years and years and years of effort and learning and work just because I would not sit in my teacher's sessions with the intention of just being at the receiver's end, just saying I'm here to receive. And after that day, I think my life just changed, because I let go of this responsibility of everybody's minds and what they're thinking and how they're receiving and what they should learn. And so what happened with this lady who was in my session was constantly worried about how I will corrupt people's minds with shirk, even though when I was talking to her, I asked her, did you at any point feel like your iman got corrupted? She said no. I said, did you at any point feel like you got inclined towards shirk? She said no. I said, did you learn XYZ from what I told you? And she said yes. And she wrote a whole email first telling me how much she'd benefited. So you see, along the way, her intentions got diverted, but as long as she was focused on herself, she was receiving. And that is why our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a tawheedi journey. It's just a journey of one person, one me with one God. The minute we add duality, the minute I start worrying about another person or another being or another person's mindset, I have already lost the ni'mat and the gift that I was supposed to receive. I'll lose it. And therefore, there's a wisdom in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala phrasing this ayat as a dua. Because 5 times a day, when I stand in salah and I read Surah Fatiha, even if I'm not in a state of faqr right now, even if I'm not ready, even if I don't feel this neediness or emptiness inside of me, and I'm going through that phase where I feel like, yeah, I'm getting somewhere, I know something, there's an affirmation here. This dua being recited again and again is actually training my mind. It's actually training my subconscious mind to enter a state of neediness. So through the phrasing, through the way this ayat is phrased, becomes a training ground for my soul in a subconscious way. And that's why we just can't stop looking at the beauty of Quran. Constantly we see this, and Allah is Latif, there's a latafa, there's a subtlety to everything. And that's why, I was talking to somebody and I'm like, we're just on this surah for like more than a year now. And we're still, on this ayat. And I was so pleased that recently I heard these ayat, these ahadith from some scholar I was listening to who said that do not rush to end the surah. Don't be in a rush to end the surah, be with it as you are, and try to go as deeply as possible. And so alhamdulillah for this. And so moving forward now, finally, power of now, the impermanence and the cycles of life. Over here, Eckhart Tolle says that as long as you are in the physical dimension and linked to the collective human psyche and physical pain, although rare, this is not to be confused with suffering or with mental emotional pain. All suffering is ego created and is due to resistance. So again, like I said, if there's a resistance to receiving, then you could be sitting in a class and not get anything because there's an internal resistance. Also, as long as you are in this dimension, you are still subject to cyclical nature and to the law of impermanence of all things. But you no longer perceive this as bad. It just is. 2 points here. Number one, it said that when you're in a state of resistance, you're in a state of suffering, right? And resistance is only from the ego, it's not from the soul. Ego is that state where we separate ourselves, right? And this student of mine entered a state of suffering of disappointment. Her suffering was disappointment because there was a resistance. So every time there's a resistance, it will manifest itself as a certain kind of pain, a certain kind of problematic suffering. Okay, but if you enter the state of the soul beyond the ego, then that very experience that would be perceived as negative by another perspective would now be accepted by the soul as something which just is. It's just meant to be. Through allowing the isness of all things, a deeper dimension underneath the play of opposites reveals itself to us as an abiding presence, an unchanging deep stillness, an uncaused joy beyond good and bad. This is the joy of being, the peace of God. Okay? Now, the isness or the being state is that state which, in Tao they say Wu Wei, to go with the flow, to accept whatever is, you just go with it. And, there's a phrase that we use here a lot. I'm sure you guys use it in Allah Malik. Allah Malik is in like, he's the master. Just, Allah ke hawale, like, let him be the one who becomes the protector, the one who takes over, the one who is going to be the Malik of this situation. So there's this state of faith, there's a state of tawakkul in what? Even in the restlessness, even in the darkness, even in a state of this good and bad, there's this feeling of it's fine, it's perfect, it's all good, all is well. There's this feeling of deep inner feeling of trust that it's all well and it's all good. And when we do that, what happens is that we are now in a very deep way relying on a being who has permanence. So just last night in my talk, I was seeing somebody said that, we should always have God as the center of everything that we do. And I questioned and I said, why should God be the center of everything you do? What's the reason? And the reason is that God is that only constant, permanent entity that can give you any sense of stability in life. Everything else is in a state of chaos. Everything is in a state of degeneration, generation and decay. So if you are going to, rely and anchor yourself in something which is not even anchored itself, like if somebody says, oh, Fatma, you're my teacher, I don't even know what I'll be tomorrow. I don't even know what state of mind I'll be in tomorrow. Like, what will I know tomorrow or not know tomorrow? And what if everything I know today means completely obsolete to me, and now I'm on a completely different journey? There's so much impermanence to me as a human being that you can't anchor yourself in me. I'm not even permanent. How can you anchor yourself in something which is not permanent? And so if you're going to anchor yourself in somebody who's not permanent, then you're going to never have any sense of stability or permanence or joy. And why do I say joy? Is because when we anchor ourselves in God, the only one who's perfect and permanent and constant and reliable reality, then we can kind of take a breath of relief and say, I hand over all of this confusion and chaos of my life and impermanence of my life, and now God will take care of it, right? And so you enter a state of a relaxed stillness, because now you know a higher entity is taking care of your affairs, right? And Allah ghaliba illa lillah. Allah is the one who is ghalib over everything. He is the one who has qudrat over everything. He is the one who is taking care of all the amr, all the affairs. Now, when you've handed over your affairs to the one who is truly worthy and capable, you can relax. When you enter a state of relaxed stillness, now you're not worried. You're not worried. You're not stressed. You're not stressed. You're not producing stress hormones or cortisol or all of those things. And you enter even a physical state of healing. Now you are becoming receiver of this healing, receiver of this goodness, because you have entered a state of relying on the isness of life, that whatever is in his hands, biyadikal khair, and in his hands is all good. And so you enter a state of going with the flow. And a lot of teachers, they tell us, they advise us to contemplate on the cycles of of planet Earth in the ecosystem, of how the water goes into the ocean, becomes the clouds, becomes rain, becomes river, flows down again. The flowers that they pollinate and they grow, and then they have a life, and then they go again. To find the time to contemplate on this system which is running itself in nature. And when we don't interfere in the ecosystem, it self stabilizes itself. It goes back to its natural habitat. The populations of animal species were extinct, going extinct, they go back to growing again when the human hand doesn't interfere. And what they say is that, can the human hand stop meddling with the human self? Can you stop meddling with your own self and with your own life and let God be that stabilizing factor in your life? You know, and if we can do that, our issue is this, that we think we're somebody and we know something, so we can do this better. So let me advise myself and let me do self-medication and let me do this and let me do that, right? It's when we interfere that we throw ourselves, our soul out of that balance of accepting. And where does that happen? Where does that interference happen? It doesn't happen from the heart, okay? It happens from the mind. Honestly, when I try to train myself to go with my heart, the voice of my heart, something's coming to my heart again and again, but it doesn't look right to the mind. And, I feel like Allah has given me enough messages to do something. And this is something that I was going through this morning. And, I follow my heart and I eventually surrender and I say, okay, I'll do this. Okay, my heart is constantly inclining towards it. Okay, I'll do this. And my brain's constantly in that chatter of saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? This doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't even make any sense. And I can't understand it from my brain, but I surrender and I do it. Okay, like I do that thing, I go to sleep. The next morning I wake up and my brain's taken over and I say, what did you just do yesterday? Like, what were you thinking? Why? Because now the brain is going into resistance. The brain is saying, what did you do? Why did you do it? What were the reasons? It didn't make sense. You should have done this. You should have taken precaution. The fear kicks in. And so the real state of isness would be, how would it be for us to be in complete surrender to something which actually the brain thinks is completely wrong? The brain cannot make sense of it. And my teacher would say that, can God make sense to you? Do you understand God? When you don't understand something, remember that it has happened from the divine, because the divine cannot be made sense of. The divine is in the realm of the unknown. You can't know it. You can't sense it. You can't make sense of it. You can't put a box around the divine. You can't do the right and the wrong of the divine because it is formless. So experiences in life which you really can't fathom, which you can't make sense of, which you can't understand, they're divine experiences. And that's why, the people of the heart, they're called foolhardy. They do things which, they'll say, oh, she's a daredevil or he's a daredevil or foolhardy or whatever. And they just jump into doing these things, like they'll just quit their job and say, oh, my passion, I'm going to do this venture. I want to do this startup, my business. I've had this passion. And people are like, what are you thinking? Did you do the risk calculation? Did you do this? Did you do that? And people of the heart will be like, no, I know it. I can feel it. This is really going to work, and it doesn't work the first time, the second time, the third time, but there's an oozing energy in the heart that doesn't let them sit, because that passion is coming from the heart. It's coming from the divine, it's coming from that that place of inspiration, which we said in spirit, not information, not inform. It's coming from inspiration. So what happens when we do these risk calculations? We write down information, right? It can't be inspiration, but life of inspiration is a life of the heart, which at times will not make sense to us. I mean, you look at the life of Nelson Mandela, you look at the life of Steve Jobs, you look at the life of Oprah when she quit her job, and you look at all these people who followed their heart, you know, and you see them expand in a divine plan, and they change the world. Their energy is so huge that it changes the world even on a physical level. Their presence becomes immortal through the work they do. The change they make in the world can never be undone anymore because that impact has been made. And so we see that we enter a state of surrendering to the heart. And surrendering to the heart means that whatever experiences come in our life, I would say we say labek to it. We say yes. And this yes connects us to the yes of the Quran, Qalu Bala. Allah is saying, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And we say yes. Do you see what he's saying? I am your nourisher, I am your protector, I'm your provider, I'm the one who will take your seed and make it into a tree. That is the rub. The rub is the nourisher. The mother, mother is I call mother pseudo rubs. They're like the peg of rubness in life, if that's even a word. But so the God who is talking to us in this verse, he's saying, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? Don't you trust me? Don't you trust in the way I'm going to take life, the way I make the flowers grow, the way I make the water recycle? Don't you have faith in me that I am going to take you and bring you to your fruition? In Ya ayyuhal insan innaka qadihan ila rabbika qadhan famulaki. Oh mankind, you're striving and you will for sure reach your Lord. Allah is saying, am I not your Lord? I am going to make sure that you reach that perfection, that fruition. But can you please let go? Can you please let go of this separation, that somehow you're separate from me, that somehow I won't be taking care of you, that somehow you have to fend for yourself, that somehow you have to protect yourself, that somehow you have to take care of yourself? Just let go and enter a state of flow. And things that don't make sense, leave them to me. I am working on you. I'm taking you through these stages. The reason why we can't let go at times, and the reason why the brain kicks in, is because of fear. And fear only enters when the faith diminishes. When the faith diminishes, it's because the knowing of who is in charge diminishes. The inner knowing of the caliber or the capacity of who is my caretaker diminishes. So when the knowledge, the inner feeling of the greatness of God diminishes, we start to mistrust this superintendent, right? This in charge, this entity who is taking care of us. When that mistrust comes in, then we don't find him capable. Is he really capable of taking care of me? Is he really, like, imagine how it sounds even when I put it into words. Is Allah even capable? You see how wrong it sounds, but we live that. We live that way in our lives. And so that's why what happens is that the faith diminishes, the tawakkul diminishes, the reliance diminishes, and then we want to take over. And we want to take over because now we feel like the other entity is not capable, so I should. And you see how that becomes shirk. To not surrender to the flow of life, to be in a state of worry, to be in a state of stress, to be in a state of controlling our affairs, is a state of shirk. And through this process today, what has come clear to us is that doing shirk is not something Okay, an insecure God is demanding of us, It's not like, I'm your only God and you better worship me. How dare you go and worship somebody else? I'm not feeling good about myself because you went and worshiped somebody else. Now, Zubillah, that's not like how God is talking to us, but that's how we take it. Like, oh, if we do shirk, he's going to punish me because he doesn't like me worshiping somebody else. It's not like that. What he's trying to tell us that intrinsically, the way we are programmed and the way we are, if we at any point feel stressed, we feel worried, we feel like life is overwhelming and overburdening, then a part of us is in a way doing shirk, has in a way let go of the knowing of the capacity and the capability of God taking care of our affairs. And therefore, Tawheed is the ultimate remedy for humanity. Tawheed and complete reliance on God is the ultimate medicine for all our maladies, for all of all our dilemmas and problems. So I'm just going to go a little further and end today's session. This is the joy of being the peace of God. Now, one thing really beautiful Deepak Chopra talks about in his book, this one over here, and I'm still not done understanding this, but he's, in his book of secrets, he talks about being, okay? And he says that absolute being has no cause. And being doesn't act, okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't act. He just is. Because doing an act means that there is a cause and the cause has an effect, okay? Allah is in his essence no cause and effect. There is no progression. There is no generation and decay. There is no influence of one thing over another. It just is. So the being itself doesn't act. Therefore, it is never touched by the cause and effect. So instead of worrying about cause and effect, which is the origin of all tendencies, one can simply say that there is no cause and effect. That is why we constantly get caught up in our mind, because the mind will always analyze situations in the equation of cause and effect. Brain is always about cause and effect. You did this, so you will get this. You did bad, there is a consequence, and that is why there is a fear, right? So the mind will constantly fall in the trap of cause and effect, which is the lower reality. But to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be in a state of higher isness, of non-resistance, of being closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that then means that you let go of the cause and effect. Even if I am sick today, it doesn't mean that my future is doomed. Even if I messed up at work today, it doesn't mean I'll be fired tomorrow. Even if my child put something up his nose, doesn't mean that this is the end of the world. It's going to be healed. It's going to be okay. So when we are able to let go of the cause and effect, we enter this space of the quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where we let go of the mind, and now we have entered a state of heart. And the heart is about letting go of the outer reality, because outer reality is all about cause and effect, but relying on an inner reality, relying on that inner experience of God. And Michael Beckwith, he's a pastor, he's a priest, and he's an energy worker. Oprah talks to him a lot, and I listen to him. He's a really holy man. I really respect him. And I will share his tiny clip on our group, in which he's saying that for him, the idea of, what did he say? That for him, this God particle, for him, this faculty within us, which is the divine faculty, is the faculty of letting go of the outer experience and then taking steps in life from an inner experience. Okay, so moving in life with faith, despite the fact that the cause and effects are totally indicating a fearful situation, so then you detach from the cause and effect, you enter a realm of uh, surrendering to the flow of life, and knowing that the chaos outside may look chaotic, but there is a deep order within it. It is in the hands of God, and in the hands of God is only good. And so I don't need to worry. And the biggest challenge that I hold very close to my heart, I heard from this teacher, and he said it's very easy to say that I made a mistake, and I made a mistake now, and now what can I do? No, sorry. He was saying that when we take all the precautions, right? Like I close the door and I lock all the gates and everything, and despite all of my precautions, a burglary, God forbid, happens, right? So you'll say, Allah, I did my best, and burglary still happened, so it must be in your will. You ordained it. So I surrender. Okay. I did my best, and you ordained it, it happened. Okay, fine, it's in your will. But what if you actually really messed up? You were careless and you forgot to lock, and you messed up, and then the burglary happens. In that moment, when you realize what a big mm, you know big problem you've created, what a big blunder you've made, can you still not be in a state of stress and self condemning attitude? And even then, can you say this was also in the will of God, that my mistake was also in the will of God? Can you let go? And can you say, yeah, I really feel like next time I need to be careful, but deep inside of yourself, can you still be in a state of surrender and say this was also from God? Because if we don't, okay, I'm just going to end here. If I don't, and if I say, no, I was so bad and I did this, you're actually separating yourself from God, and you're saying, I somehow had a separate will from God's. And what I did was something I could do other than God's will. And that was just like, oh my God. And it gave me so much peace, and it gave me so much joy and so much freedom from this heavy baggage of guilt that we, carry around with ourselves all the time. And one might argue that, oh, that would just mean that if everything is in God's hands, then I can just do whatever I feel like doing, and I can do the worst things, and I can just say it's in the will of God. No, I'm sorry. Let's come back to the original thing that we always talk about. What was your intention? Was your intention really to leave the doors open and that the burglary would happen? Was that your intention? No, of course not. Because your intentions were not bad, you have to understand that you have to let it go. But yeah, if you have an evil, really like very bad intention, which hardly I come across. People are good usually in the world. They don't have bad intentions. Um, Especially I'm privileged because in these classes, people come with evil intentions. We generally don't have evil intentions. We have good intentions. We do good things with good intentions, but we mess up. But when we mess up, immediately we have to remember, if I separate myself and I say, I did this bad and I'm a bad person, we separate ourselves from God's will. And the best surrender and the most difficult surrender is to surrender that, yes, I messed up, but even that was in God's will. And then the state of stillness we feel after this realization of sitting with ourselves is the most peaceful feeling, is the most beautiful feeling of feeling so loved and feeling so held and, protected by God. And one last, like a practice that I suggest to a lot of people which was very life-changing for me, is that every time you feel like your shoulders are clenched and your jaw is clenched and you're in a state of stress because of something, bring awareness and just say, I am safe, I'm supported, and I'm protected, because it just has this immediate effect. I'm safe and I'm supported, that life supports us. So with that, we end our session and we put our hands up for dua. Oh Allah, we come to you with the yearning for the yearning. Oh Allah, we come to you with a asking of this deep burning desire within us to make us one of those lucky friends who have this yearning in their hearts, which burns them day and night, which makes them restless, which brings into them this yearning to go back home to the source, to their God, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the source, who is the home. O Allah, we come to you with a yearning for this asking of the asking, because what can be a greater gift than having that lantern in our hearts that burns in the oil of your yearning, Ya Allah. We come to you because if we do not have this yearning, if we don't have this faqr, if we don't have this emptiness, if we don't have this want, there can be no fuel for our journey. There can be no moving forward. There can be no going forward, Ya Allah. O Allah, do not make us one of those who are stuck and who are static, who are stagnant, Ya Allah. Despite our fears and our weak states, Ya Allah, despite our pains and our brokenness, our only hope lies in you, Ya Allah, the perfect, the beautiful, the loving, the kind, the one for whom everything is easy. O Allah, we pray to you to bring healing to all of those in pain, in suffering, in hospitals, in mental, emotional, and physical pain, or any kind of agony or disability. Ya Allah, bring healing to them. O Allah, you are the kind and the most merciful, and Beshak, there is guidance in all of this. O Allah, show us the guidance in our pain. O Allah, show us the guidance in our pain. O Allah, show us the guidance in our pain. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen.